What's up, guys, and welcome back for another solo mining episode. We're going to be out in the Porpoise and the Mackinac today, and we're going to be talking about solo fleet mining and some tactics. Maybe regulate some expectations in terms of ISK per hour, and just kind of talk about it in general and kind of what I would do in certain space, what configurations and what ships for the fleet I would do, depending on what activity I was trying to go after. Now, a lot of mining is kind of based on your own motivations and your own goals and everything. If you're mining straight just to sell the stuff, instead of manufacturing, then it gets a little bit less complicated. You can spend more time in high sec mining to get value, or you can spend less time in more riskier areas to get that ISK as well. It really just kind of depends. I think a lot of people end up either in high sec or in null sec with solo fleet mining, and really kind of scaling it to the point of making whatever they need to make per day. And per day, like, ISK per hour, how much you need to make per day, like all that really means, if you're trying to like pay, if you're trying to flex your accounts to help kind of keep the cost down, then you're really going to be worried about like your rate, your ISK per hour, and how much your alts are contributing to the overall cost for your Omega. But and that can take a lot of fun out of it too, right? I mean, for the longest time I was operating with seven alts and my main, which would traditionally just fly a Rorqual and do like, we weren't mining, I'd be doing like Marauder PV stuff, 7, 8, 9 of 10s, or 10 of 10s and stuff like that. But, and that's really important too, is it's like you kind of do have to still subsidize your income outside of mining, because you're not going to feel like just operating multiple characters in a fleet for multiple hours a day. So that's why I recommend personally PI. I think it's a really good income passively. Product discovery, that's something you can do on your alt while you're mining in a fleet. Even if you're running only 3 accounts, you'll see you have 2 Hulks and a Porpoise, or whatever the case may be, then if you're out there and you're mining and you're also just doing product discovery and swapping, doing product discovery in all those tunes, I mean, in an hour or so, that's 60 million straight to your wallet right there. So, and then on top of whatever else you're mining. So I think you have to think about it in terms of that. If you're in the position where you're already fleet mining, or if you're thinking about doing solo fleet mining, then definitely start, looking at some other passive income ways to kind of fill in the gaps as well. Because there'll be some days where maybe your system has a pirate stronghold and you're not able to go out in that system safely. You have options to like, displace to another system to mine, which can add a little bit of inconvenience. But having, I believe that alts should, do more than just what their intended purpose is. It's like Sino alts, right? It's really hard for me just to operate one account with one character on it for the pure reason of being a Sino alt. That Sino alt, it might get used once or twice a week depending on what I'm doing. So that all needs to pull its weight a little bit. So that's why PI is important. Every alt I've had for the past like 2 years has had PI trained, has been trained into blockade runners, and was able to help with that passive income from PI, or logistics runs, or being able to if I'm not mining, I can send one of the alts to Jita to post stuff, whatever. I have to give them some sort of purpose other than their primary role to make it really worth it. And I want to touch on that a little bit, different uses for alts and stuff like that, but we're going to kind of keep it in the lens of mining, so to speak. Now, what you're seeing today is, Porpoise, Mackinac, just because these are ships I had on hand, and I figure we get out here and turn the burst on and kind of get some decent yield and stuff. And as far as time efficiency goes, it's like you don't necessarily. I probably wouldn't recommend planning to do like multiple hours of mining a day, if you're willing to do like fleet mining like this, because you can just do like yesterday we did 4 hours of Porpoise drone mining for what, 26 million, whereas we can do that in like 30 minutes with this setup, right? And instead of spending 4 hours on the belt, drone mining is great, I love it, right? It's very chill, and I wish it would be buffed or improved or whatever in the grand scheme of things. But the time I spend drone mining for 4 hours, if I instead did this for 30 minutes and made the same amount of ISK, that's 3.5 hours I could spend doing something else. And in addition to that, just having that extra character for PI, that's 6 more planets that are available to me as well, which can add to the coffers over the course of a month and stuff. Now, depending on where you are, yeah, different strategies are used for solo fleet mining. In high sec, it's pretty common just to see like Orca, Porpoise, and the Hulks, kind of min max, whatever. It could be a little dangerous in high sec just because people are really weird about like there's a lot of people who don't understand how solo fleet mining works, or the difference between multi-boxing and botting. If they see multiple characters doing solo fleet mining, they're going to naturally assume that it's a bot there. So in most cases, I do recommend people to like not the naming convention of your alts, differentiate it a little bit. Like if you have like miner 1, miner 2, miner 3, miner 4, and they're all on the belt with your Porpoise, that's a little bot adjacent, right? If you vary the names up a little bit, then maybe you can be perceived as a corporation that's doing a mining op or something. But naming your alts can be a good or a bad thing in terms of perception, because in reality perception is everything. But I think like one of my biggest motivations for doing like solo fleet mining is to hopefully educate people who think that it's that botting and multi-boxing is all the same. Like botting would be like you running third-party software to do all of the multiple actions and stuff without you even being present at the computer. It's completely automated. Now, multi-boxing is the term multi-boxing just really means you're running multiple clients. It doesn't mean you're running third-party scripts to broadcast keystrokes. It doesn't mean you're running any sort of thing like that. It's kind of a catch-all term for a lot of in a lot of different communities to mean different things. But in terms of like this application here, I'm not broadcasting any keystrokes. I have to switch to every single client to do every action manually. The only real difference is I'm running multiple instances of the game, and that's really what differentiates it from something like botting. Like I'm a big multi-boxer. I've multi-boxed pretty much every game that it makes sense for. I do not believe in botting or scripting or using automatization and stuff like that. I think that kind of takes away a lot of like the fun. It's like if you set up all this crazy like software and you have this crazy script running and you don't even have to be at the computer or whatever playing, then you're just kind of cheating yourself out of an experience, in my opinion. And botting is a problem. Botting is a huge problem, and they've done a lot of things to try to combat it. A lot of the reasons why we've had nerfs to excavator drones and the Rorqual and just drone mining in general has been their way of trying to combat botting and trying to make mining not as bot friendly. I think if botting was never an issue in EVE, I think drones would probably automatically go to the next targeted rock on your target list, and we have like quality of life things like that. Or if fighters like after a fighter kills a rat, it would probably aggress just like normal rats do, instead of just sitting in space absolutely still and taking crazy amounts of damage. So there are a lot of mechanics that have been changed, nerfed, and stuff to help combat it, which I think is strides in the right direction. But also the people who weren't necessarily botting, who were just enjoying those gameplay options, are suffering for it and everything. But I enjoy it because it's just like it helps with time efficiency. Like I've said in previous videos, I think the best combination is 3 accounts. 2 Mackinaws and a Porpoise, or 2 Hulks. If you really want to go after some serious ISK per hour, or like at least yield per hour, 2 Hulks and a Porpoise it will get you there. Once you get really good at like operating those 3 accounts, then you'll make a pretty good amount and everything. Now let's talk about like solo fleet mining compositions and stuff. So like in nullsec, it's almost, I'll just kind of start off this whole thing with like the Porpoise is pretty much preferred in almost every situation. One, because its industrial core is only 75 seconds, and you can compress in ship now, so if you're running Mackinaws, they can kind of just hold their own. And also the 5K fleet hangar isn't such a big deal anymore. The 5K fleet hangar on the Porpoise used to be a real big problem when we had to actually move the ore to the Orca or the Porpoise to compress it, because you just can't fit a lot through there. The Porpoise fleet hangar was like a huge bottleneck, and so that's why a lot of people ended up just going with Orca, because they could just dump into that 40K fleet hangar and do their mess. Now that we can compress inside the ships, then the Porpoise has a lot more applications. That faster, it has obviously less tank, but faster line to get on in and off grid. But mostly the biggest sell on it is the 75-second industrial core. Orca is 2.5 minutes. You do have to have the Orca for certain applications, like compressing moon ore. But like I kind of talked about in the live premiere for yesterday's episode, if all you really need is if you're okay with like running your mining burst without being sieged, or without having the industrial core on, you can actually still give yourself compression without locking your main alt down. And this is really a strategy that kind of comes into play with nullsec, especially like moon mining in nullsec. So let's say you have like your Porpoise, and you have a couple of Hulks out there, and you're moon mining. You're dragging from one bookmark to the next. Maybe you're dragging from one bookmark and you're pointed at a paw, so if anything comes in the system, you can just take off. That's drag mining. And you're using a Higgs anchor to slow the Porpoise down so you can spend more time on grid. If you have questions about like drag mining, there's a whole video on it for the channel, but that's essentially your setup. So those Hulks are just pulling stuff in, and everything like that. I wouldn't probably do this with Hulks. Hulks fill up really, really, really fast when you're boosting them. It's just, let's say they're Mackinaws, for instance. So Mackinaws are getting close to being full, and what you can do is you can actually have an Orca, an alt that's in an Orca that's basically stripped down. It doesn't really have a whole lot on it. It might have like an improved cloak. It'll have the compressor, and it'll have the industrial core. You can even run a Tech 1 on it. And then it doesn't even really have to put any tank on it. Maybe some inertial stabilizers or whatever. This alt you have placed out at the max compression range from where your fleet is operating. I usually put mine like 50K away from where my start bookmark is, and the skill is trained out to like 80K, and then I'll just cloak them up, right? So the process here, when you're ready to compress out here, then what you would do is you'd basically drop the cloak on the alt with the Orca, turn on the industrial core, immediately turn off the industrial core, turn on the compressor, and then go to your Mackinaws or whatever and compress, and be good to go. Once the industrial core on that alt Orca is done, recloak. You want to make sure that alt is away, from anything like 2,500 meters. That way you don't have to, wait for that orca to come to grid or come from the rear tether or something for you to be able to do this. That's one way to like facilitate compression in nullsec without actually locking your fleet down. I think that's a big reservation for a lot of people. Why a lot of people don't end up going with solo fleet mining, because they don't like the idea of being stuck in place, which is understandable. It's a tactic that CCP likes to like put on like a higher end gameplay that I just think is ridiculous, between like the carrier stuff, like all these things that just lock the ship in place to, I don't know, forced destruction and content and whatever. So, but even if you're like halfway through a cycle on a porpoise and you read it, you have a pretty decent amount of time to get off grid. If you don't want to run an orc ult for that moon mining compression, then you can also just fill up the Mackinaws and then warp to the POS, and then you can turn on your porpoises. Or the porpoise can't do moon mining, but then you can have like an orca sitting in the POS, ready to do it, and then you start the whole drag all over again. But that's a very specific situation, because you have to either be in an orca or a rorqual to compress moon ore. For regular ore, you can do a porpoise all day. Like you do an Arcnor Bistot or whatever. Like just, like I said, in that situation, you could drag in one of the nullsec anoms as well. And then once your ships fill up, you can either just check intel, check D-scan, siege for one cycle, let everybody compress, and then just continue moving again afterwards. Or what I like to do is usually after a good run where all the ships are kind of filling up and everything, I don't mind taking a break. Getting up, standing around. I'll take my fleet to the POS, compress there, and not worry about it too much. In a high sec, I just siege the whole time. I just keep the siege on because it increases the command burst values, and it just opens up compression all the time. And that's what allows you to run like hulks. Hulks will fill up really, really fast when you have the industrial core with burst on and everything. So it's usually compress in the hulk and move it over to the fleet hangar for the porpoise. Do that on every single alt, and then during the downtimes you empty the fleet hangar into the main mining hold and stuff. But it just comes down to like whatever situation you're in, depends on like your composition as well. If you want to be more chill and not have to worry too much about being very methodical about switching alts and doing all the things, that's why Mackinaw is something that I recommend for a lot of people, because it does take a minute to fill up the Mackinaws, and they can kind of hold some compressed ore for several cycles through everything. It's a little bit less tedious, especially if you're getting used to the whole like mining process with a fleet and stuff like that. Now, once you get to like higher level, like you want to do like ice or something like that, then yeah, it's a little bit different configuration. Like I used to do Rorqual plus Hulks for ice. I used to just drag, and instead of compressing on field, I would just dump all the ice into the Rorqual, because you have that fleet hangar, and it just makes it so much easier. If I don't have to worry about anything if I'm in the POS and I'm sieged up. Yeah, I guess it comes down to like, do you want to compress on field, or do you want to compress at a POS or at a safe or something? If you don't care about compressing on the field, then you Orca, Rorqual are going to be the best ships, because they have higher, they can hold more ore. They have the 40k fleet hangar, and then you can run hulks and just, while that ship is dragging and moving through the belt or the anomaly, just dump everything in the fleet hangar, and then move everything from the fleet hangar to the ore hold, and then worry about compression after the fact, right? And you can do pretty decent with that as well. Obviously, you're not going to get the bonuses to your burst that the industrial core gives, but I think that a lot of people, it's a trade-off. It's like, well, I'd rather not be locked in place and have a little bit less strength on the burst than be locked down and have to worry about about losing stuff, and that's always something you gotta worry about. I've never had a problem with Orca or Porpoise with the core on, and a lot of that comes down to just knowing the capabilities of each ship, picking the right ship for the right situation, and going from there. But one of the big reasons I addressed this kind of yesterday, but like one of the big reasons I stopped doing solo fleet mining was because I was getting a lot of comments saying that like all the solo fleet mining stuff I was doing on this series was misleading. It's I'm not actually solo. Well, my definition of solo is single heartbeat, right? Now, obviously, for like PvP or PvE combat ship stuff, it changes. Like I usually don't do multiple accounts for that kind of stuff. The income is really high. I usually just run a Marauder for a PvE, and the idea of doing like anything more than that is tedious. Combat is a lot more complex of an activity and a lot more difficult to do with multiple characters. Mining is relatively like semi AFK, so it unfortunately the way that they design mining is very, very alt friendly, unfortunately. And mining is pretty much the only thing that I do like solo fleet stuff with anyway. The other benefits of having like other things you can give these alts to do other than PI and product discovery would be like research or manufacturing, right? When I was doing like high levels of manufacturing, then I would be researching BPOs, doing reactions, doing manufacturing jobs, doing invention jobs, all that stuff on every single tune that I could, because once you max out all the slots, it's like 11 slots for manufacturing, research, and stuff like that. And if you're trying to do like capital ship construction, you're juggling a lot of different BPOs. So training alts into actually being able to be extra research slots is another cool thing to have. And also, if you start getting into carriers or dreads or anything that has like a jump drive, then your mining alts can also double as Sinos. And what I used to do is I used to set up all my mining alts for Sinos, but like they'd have my jump freighter route, which I had seeded, is predetermined. I use the same route all the time. So like when I got ready to do my jump freighter route, I'd log all my miners in the home system, and then they would all just jump clone to their respective systems. When they jump clone, they would just be all along that route. And then once I was done jumping, then I could just all their home locations were set to the mining system. So instead of I didn't have to wait 24 hours or 20 hours to jump back to the home system. Once they were done with the jump route, I would just destroy their pod, and they would make sure like you put the clone back in the station. But I would just destroy their pod, and they'd go right back to the home system and be good to go. It's kind of like it would kind of operate like a pop up Sino route and everything. And what I normally do is if I was like, say I was going to Null to Jita and back, I'd jump them all to their respective systems, and then I would, go all the way to Jita, do my thing, and then once I started jumping back, the alt closest to Jita would then I'd start sending all the alts back to the home system. And by the time I got the jump raider back to where we needed to go, back home, all my mining alts were back where they needed to be, and I could go out and mine again. So it just takes a lot of training to get the jump clone training stuff done there, and that's just some uses that I've used for. Like I said earlier in the video, I just don't like alts only being able to do one thing, because if you're not doing that one thing, then they're essentially kind of just a waste of space. You could SP farm on them, like you could put improved. That's another thing I've done too, is I've put like improved implants on all my alts, and have them train like some starship command skills, and like stuff that wasn't really being utilized on them. And every 3 months, 6 months, I would just go and extract those skill points and sell the large skill injectors, and then queue up the exact same skills again to do it all over again for the next 6 months. I would only recommend doing that if you've already got like every single skill that all could possibly have use for. So after that, alt has all of its tank, shield, magic 14. If it's doing PI, have all the PI skills you need. If it's helping with manufacturing, all the science and production and maybe resource processing skills. Like, make sure that you don't need anything else on that alt. And because I like lining all my skills up for my alts. I like them all have the same fit. I like them have all the same EHP, all the same amount of like locked targets, drone damage, everything. I want them all to be, perfectly mirrored to one another, so that I don't have any variance in any of that either. It also like, and that's another thing I'll say too is, solo fleet mining also helps a lot with the rats, the battleship rats and stuff when you're mining in nullsec. If you get 4 battleship, spawn on an anomaly, I mean, you're running, a porpoise plus 2 hulks, that's 15 drones that can, get those guys off grid much quicker than if you were out there by yourself in like a skiff, which a skiff would have a problem getting rid of 4 battleships before, being into hull and everything. But I guess it depends on like what you guys want, like in the feedback I get. If you guys want to see more nullsec mining, that is something that I can, kind of facilitate. It might take like a week or so to kind of get everything in position and start like really doing stuff with that. But let me know in the comments if you want to see more nullsec stuff. I initially came out of nullsec. I was doing a lot of like PI out there and, a little bit of mining, but not too much. Mostly because at the time I had covered, nullsec mining kind of ad nauseum, but I'm trying to do a little bit more in-depth, coverage for mining on this series, and so a lot has changed in terms of like the series format and stuff like that since we were in nullsec last. So let me know in the comments if that's something you're interested in, and I'll try to look into that and try to like start working some of that stuff back into the series and everything, because I mean, high sec mining is great, but it's like, it's consistent and it's reliable, but it also can be very repetitive in terms of like, content and whatever. But and also just like, let me know if you want to like see any sort of like fleet mining tactics kind of in practice. I mean, I don't think I've ever done, I can't remember, but I'm not sure if I've ever shown drag mining on this series. I made the standalone video tutorial on how to do it, but we can even do a drag mining example here in high sec. It doesn't require nullsec or anything, but I think that'd be like an interesting episode, just kind of like really drill down like how to do it properly and the different ways to like kind of because the thing about drag mining is, the slower you move, the better. The slower you move, then the more time you're on grid, and the more time your alts have to fill up the orca. In most situations, I'd always like drag mine an orca, because why not? Because you're moving at 3-4 speed, so the way that the whole process works is, no matter what, at any time, if you hit warp, the orca's off grid instantly. That's the benefit of it. So we lower our overall speed to where we can move slower and stay on grid longer and fill up a little bit better before running out of range of rocks. You do this a lot. You do this mainly by using a Higgs anchor. And I've even gone as far as running a Higgs anchor plus all expanded cargo hold 2s in the lows, which also reduces your overall speed as well. And when your overall speed drops, your 3/4 is still a percentage, right? So you can be moving deadly slow and still be able to instant warp if you have to. I think that's a good idea, actually. Like, obviously, let me know in the comments if you want to see it, but I think that would be something good to show, because I have all that stuff here. I mean, I'd probably go pick up like a Higgs anchor and everything. But I think that would be a very educational episode. I've never really done it. I don't think I've ever really done it in this series, and I think that that would be like a lot of value. Because whenever we talk about drag mining, I always have to kind of point to that other video I've done like a year ago or a year or two ago. And it'd be a lot easier if we were actually like actively doing it here on the channel. And it would be different from what you're seeing here, where we're like strictly using the industrial core to get more yield. For drag mining, we wouldn't be using the industrial core at all. It would not be on. We'd have a safe out in space. I'm not going to put a POS out in high sec. I'm not going to pay the extra reagent cost for it out here, but we'd essentially have like a safe, you know, out in the middle of nowhere that we'd be basically dragging towards. And when either we're full, either we fill up the Orca and the Mackinaws or Hulks or whatever the case may be, or we run out of range of any rocks, or we have people come in system that are iffy. Any of those three conditions, then we take off, you know, instant warp the Orca. Sometimes the Mackinaws will be a little bit further behind, you know, starting warp, but they're also moving behind the Orca as well. So the Orca will go off immediately, and then like 1 or 2 seconds later, all the Macs will go. Which is like absolutely the preferred way to mine if you're in nullsec or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that like if you guys are okay with like you know seeing that in an episode and being demonstrated, then I think that would be a good thing to kind of do regularly and everything. But with that being said, that's gonna be it for this episode. A little bit shorter than it was yesterday, but I appreciate you guys for watching, and let me know if you have any questions. Obviously, any questions you ask on any solo mining video, I will answer them in upcoming episodes like normal. But yeah, peace out.